What this boy found in his parents' garden was incredible. He loved messing around in the dirt, but mostly he found useless bottle caps or bottles. That would not be the case at this time. Tommy held the rock in his hand and immediately knew that this thing was special. But that would be an understatement, because within one day they were called by the police. But before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. In the quaint little town of Monroe, where sidewalks wore a coat of amiable familiarity, stood a homely, warm-looking house, a haven to a little boy who was a treasure hunter at heart. Every inch of the house and its backyard spoke volumes about the boy who lived there, the invincible young explorer who had breathed life into its existence. Tommy, a sturdy 8-year-old with an insatiable curiosity and a vibrant imagination that surpassed his years, Tommy was no ordinary child. His dreams were larger than life itself, filled with adventures that had him unearthing valuable relics and cracking ancient codes, much like his favorite movie hero, Indiana Jones. Last week, Tommy and his father watched an Indiana Jones movie together. And since then, Tommy was utterly convinced that he was the young avatar of the legendary adventurer. His backyard, his playfield, had suddenly transformed into an unexplored wilderness replete with hidden artifacts and mysterious objects waiting to be discovered. Every morning, armed with his favorite cowboy hat, a makeshift whip, and a satchel slung across his tiny shoulders, Tommy set off on his quest, leaving no stone unturned. His parents, Laura and Greg, would wave him off, indulging in his fantasies. Their little boy's innocent zeal filled their hearts with joy, and they loved hearing the fantastic tales Tommy spun around his findings at the end of each day. Underneath the weeping willow or behind the picket fence, he often surprised himself with interesting finds that immediately sparked stories in his mind. One day it was a peculiar-shaped shell, the next, an old faded photograph, and sometimes he found discarded toys which, in Tommy's imagination, held secrets of an untold past. Indeed, Tommy had a knack for finding things, and he loved it. He loved the promise each new day held, the secrets that his backyard might hold for the future. But he was about to find out. His heart fluttered with excitement every time his spade struck something unusual. His eyes sparkled with anticipation each time he held an artifact in his hands, ready to unveil its story. The latest treasure Tommy had stumbled upon was an old glass bottle. It was a simple artifact covered in the timeless silt of the river that flowed beyond his backyard. Yet, to Tommy, it was a priceless relic from a bygone era. After washing away its layers of grime, and with a bit of research assisted by his parents, they discovered the bottle hailed from 1938. The discovery thrilled Tommy beyond measure, and he couldn't wait to tell his friends about it at school. Every day, Tommy's little adventures grew grander, his horizons expanded, and he discovered new corners of his magical backyard. But unknown to him, his biggest find was yet to come, a find that would eclipse all others, a find that would steer his everyday adventures into an extraordinary journey, a find that would turn his quaint little world upside down, one so bizarre that even the police had to get involved. With Sunday being here and the promise of an adventurous day stretching ahead, Tommy sprung out of bed with unusual vigor. He did not have to worry about school, and his whole day lay in front of him, a clean slate that he was eager to fill with his explorations. His ritual morning preparations began in earnest. Tommy was dressed in his best Indiana Jones outfit. He strapped on his leather boots and tucked his faithful toy whip in his belt. He checked his backpack, making sure his shovel, a few plastic bags for his finds, and his ever-handy notebook for sketching and noting observations were all in place. He packed a lunch his mom had prepared, promising to return only when he was either too tired or had discovered something extraordinary. His parents, sipping their morning coffee, watched as their little boy prepared for his adventure. They didn't quite understand Tommy's fascination with the garden, but they didn't interfere. Laura and Greg had always encouraged their son's creativity and curiosity. By mid-morning, Tommy was on his hands and knees, examining the previously unexplored corners of their vast backyard, hoping to find a big haul. There was something exhilarating about probing the unknown, something satisfying about digging up the layers of the past, even if it were just a simple pebble or a lost toy. His hands moved swiftly, methodically, unearthing layer after layer of soil. He kept digging, his keen eyes not missing any oddity. His tiny fingers carefully and swiftly sifted through the dirt. Every object he found was examined closely before being discarded or bagged for further inspection. Time flew by unnoticed. It was mid-afternoon when Tommy's shovel struck something hard. Startled, he dropped the shovel and bent down to examine the object. He could see a part of it, but it was too deeply embedded in the earth for him to make out what it was. So he switched to digging with his hands. After a few minutes of careful excavation, he managed to pull out a strangely shaped rock. It was unlike anything he had seen before. It was uneven, with bumps and dimples that gave it an almost emerald-like appearance. It also had a metallic sheen, making Tommy wonder if it was a rock at all. Even at his tender age, Tommy knew he had found something significant. However, he was also slightly confused. Why would a rock be buried so deep, and why did it have a metallic shine? His treasure hunter instincts told him to keep it safe until he could figure out what it was. He rushed home, ignoring his fatigue. His parents were surprised to see him back so early. His excitement was infectious, and they eagerly waited as he took the object out of his bag. They stared at it in awe. The rock was indeed unusual, its surface sparkling with a beautiful glow. What followed was a commotion none of them had expected, because the next day Tommy brought the rock to show and tell at school, and that started a chain reaction of commotion. Soon their house was swarming with journalists and curiosity-filled townsfolk. Tommy, in his innocence, was oblivious to the gravity of the situation. To him, it was an affirmation of his belief, an affirmation that treasures could indeed be found in one's backyard. But when the police called his parents one day later, even he knew that this find was a serious thing. The bizarre rock, his treasure, had taken him one step closer to his dream of being the real-life Indiana Jones. It had to be because, in the movies, everyone also wanted a part of the treasure. And in his case, people in the community wanted the same. What could this mysterious rock be? And what did the police call his parents for? Did they know something more? There was an air of tension and uncertainty in their house as the phone rang in the still afternoon, breaking the silence. Laura picked it up, her face turning as white as a sheet as she listened to the person on the other end. The police officer was explaining something to her in a grave tone, leaving her nodding in disbelief. Tommy, who had been watching his mother anxiously, was suddenly handed the phone. "It's for you," Laura told him, her voice a mere whisper. He could see the confusion and bewilderment in her eyes. Tommy held the receiver, his heart pounding in his chest. A million questions flew around in his mind as he put the phone to his ear. "Hello, Tommy," began the police officer, his voice calm and soothing. "I've got some interesting news about your discovery." He then asked Tommy to fetch the rock and hold it under cold water. The police officer assured him that it would help wash off the sludge and dirt. Tommy followed his instructions as closely as he could, being thorough but careful. And within a few minutes, the rock transformed into a gleaming golden nugget, its beauty enchanting the little boy. The police officer then told Tommy what he held in his hands. The explanation left Tommy speechless, his hands trembling slightly as he held the rock. He could hear his parents gasping in the background. The rock he had discovered in his backyard was not a simple rock. It was a chunk of a meteorite made of gold. The officer explained that the rock was part of a meteorite that had fallen in Monroe several years ago. The meteorite was believed to have shattered into pieces upon impact, scattering fragments over a very specific small area. The peculiar rock Tommy had found was probably one of those fragments. The meteorite's composition was rare, primarily consisting of gold and other precious metals. The rock in Tommy's hands was estimated to be worth a fortune. News of Tommy's incredible find had reached the police department when one of his teachers had their interest piqued during show and tell. His teacher was a stargazer and had followed the news of the falling meteor a couple of years ago. Tommy stood stunned, heart pounding as the officer's words sunk in. He was holding a golden meteorite, an object from space. His excitement and wonder transformed it from a mere artifact into a symbol of the universe's mysteries and his dream of being an adventurer. The officer snapped Tommy out of his daydream, revealing that his discovery provided a breakthrough. The meteor fragment's impact zone, previously unknown, could now be calculated. The estimated area, about 100 square meters, potentially held more meteorites. Tommy, thrilled at the idea of a treasure hunt in his backyard, eagerly imagined himself digging up more pieces. However, the officer warned him that it wasn't safe to do so alone. Authorities quickly took over, sending archaeologists and law enforcement to cordon off the area and start a systematic excavation. Tommy's backyard transformed into a bustling dig site filled with equipment and specialists. While officers carefully examined the ground, Tommy watched with wide-eyed excitement, his heart racing as he lived out his Indiana Jones fantasies. His parents stood by in awe, marveling at how their son's backyard curiosity led to such a significant discovery. As the excavation began, a knock at the door brought an unexpected opportunity. The authorities, recognizing Tommy's enthusiasm and initial find, invited him to assist in the search under strict guidelines. Following the instructions diligently, Tommy scanned the area and soon uncovered another meteor fragment. His excitement was unmatched as he held up the golden piece, confirmed by the experts. It was a moment of immense pride for the young adventurer, solidifying his role in the extraordinary discovery. The story of Tommy's find spread, and his small town of Monroe became the focus of scientific attention. Over the following days, the team unearthed more than 80 meteor fragments in the surrounding area. Among them, 15 were found right in Tommy's garden, including 6 pieces discovered by Tommy himself. The total value of the fragments was estimated at $6 million, a staggering amount that left the entire town in disbelief. Though the government claimed the meteorites, the experience itself was a priceless adventure for Tommy. He had not only uncovered treasures, but also lived out a childhood dream, proving that even ordinary moments could lead to extraordinary outcomes. For Tommy, this was more than a story about meteorites. It was a journey of discovery, exploration, and a testament to the power of curiosity. And while the meteor fragments would eventually leave Monroe, Tommy's adventure and the memories of that golden find would remain forever.